Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right.
Good. I am changing the picture on my overlay, and I
Yeah.
will be ready in 1 minute,
All right.
probably.
All
Less
right.
than a minute. There you go.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
You ready to talk about some subliminal messaging?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I am ready. Um, so we initially had the idea to talk about subliminal messaging, and because we thought it was going to be like this huge topic, or at least I did. I thought it was going to be a huge topic, and I'm going to find out it's kind of like not.
It's not really a thing
It's not
anymore.
really a topic, period. Um,
Yeah.
So basically, for anyone who doesn't know, subliminal messages is they'll have like an ad, they'll have like an ad, we'll say, as an example, and within said ad they'll flash pictures of something or words or something very briefly, like milliseconds, to, and it's supposed to, your subconscious is supposed to pick up on it, and you're supposed to want to go out and buy said object.
Yeah,
Um,
so it can be sounds,
yeah.
pictures, text, um, pretty much anything. And I guess in the context of our conversation, we were specifically looking at advertising as the focus. So, like Tin Man said, the goal was to get you to buy something. But I mean, I think subliminal messaging overall as a concept kind of has been around and applied to a bunch of different things. One
Mm.
of the examples that I came up on was, and I think probably everyone's heard this, but demonic messages in songs, like when you
Yeah,
play them
playing stuff
backwards,
backwards. Yeah,
like that would be an example of subliminal messaging, trying to get someone to do something, I guess, in that
right,
case.
right.
Um, but it kind of applies to a wide range of different concepts, but in advertising it's particularly interesting and um, not kind of not evil. What is the word I'm trying to think of?
Um, it's
Just that
it
I
seems
completely forgot what word I
it
was trying to use,
seems
but
less than kosher.
it's a little
Um,
shady, a
yeah, a
little
little
shady.
shady, but not actually. It's not illegal. Like that's the weird thing that I found was that it's not illegal to like it's illegal in I think the UK and Australia, or maybe France and Australia. I know Australia, but the other one I'm blanking on. But
I
it's
thought
not
it was
illegal here.
illegal.
It's not illegal
Is it
here.
not?
It's
Did that
just like
change?
it's just like frowned upon. Like
Huh.
it's kind of maybe you shouldn't do it, but we can't say that you can't do it. However, it doesn't really work by the
Yeah.
studies that they've done on subliminal messaging. It doesn't really work. Um,
Well, do we wanna go into sort of the history of where it started, uh, in recent history, I guess?
yeah, I mean, yeah, we should,
I
yes.
mean, because it kind of plays into the like,
The idea,
it
yeah,
makes it even better knowing that it doesn't really work when you know where it came from, I guess. So, I think it's what 1957. A
yeah,
marketer for what was he a movie theater?
yeah, movie theater, yeah.
I think he was just like a market researcher, but he was trying to increase like movie theater sales, and
Yeah,
so
like
he
popcorn
essentially
and soda or something like
in
that.
like Coke products essentially,
Hmm.
but he essentially faked this study saying that flashing text, subliminal text during a movie, like, increased sales of popcorn and Coke by a really significant amount.
Yeah, it was like
And
18% for popcorn and like 58% for Coke.
Yeah, and what was crazy about that is it became it like blew up, right? Like the idea of being able to get people to buy things by, flashing some text up on the screen for whatever millisecond, half a
Hmm.
millisecond or something crazy like that would get would get people to buy stuff. And so it's like it's kind of a scary concept, right? I
Yeah,
mean, understandably, because with that, if it actually worked like that, you can see people abusing that. I mean, you could argue that doing it to get people to buy stuff is already abusing that, but it could be much worse. And so it created all this hubbub.
yeah. However, years later, the guy comes out and he says, "You know what? I never did a study. In fact, I never did anything. I just lied. I lied about it all." And so the results, quote unquote, results of his study on subliminal messaging were completely fabricated. The entire thing was completely fabricated. And
Mhm.
we've done more research later that shows that they don't really work jack they don't work at all.
Well, I want to point out that this guy only admitted that after there were, like, countries banning subliminal
Right.
messaging and, like,
Yeah,
it
so
was it was getting crazy, and so he came out and said, "Hey, guys, actually, this is fake,"
actually
because
I'm just a
there
filthy
was no
liar.
yeah, there was no concrete evidence, there was no scientific evidence, uh, to back to back up any of those claims, essentially.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
there have been findings that subliminal messaging does work if you're already inclined to buy it. So, for example, if they were to throw up thirsty on a screen in something that you're watching and you're already thirsty, you are more likely to go buy something to drink. But
Ooh,
only
yeah.
if you are already like wanting to do it.
Yeah, so I think that, all this work went into studying subliminal messaging and saying, "Okay, can we quantify this? Can we replicate, the or the test that this guy did?" And there really was no conclusive evidence of
Right.
it, but like Tin Man stated, it can work. It's for a very short duration. It only worked, to my knowledge, like, in a lab sort of setting.
Yeah, and wasn't it
So, yeah,
like wasn't it like 10 minutes? Like within 10 minutes of seeing the subliminal message, like that was the time frame that we're working
yeah,
with. So
but in the yeah.
it's not like you can see a subliminal message like, "Oh, I'm thirsty," and then like, "Oh, 3 weeks later you're like, "Oh, you know what? I should buy this Powerade." No,
Yeah, so
that's not how it
the
works.
effects aren't long lasting, and it was like Tin Man said, you already have to be inclined to take an action, right? So in
Hmm.
this case, if you're thirsty and you see an ad for a drink, you have to have that inclination already. But you also have to be aware of the brand that they're advertising.
Right.
But I think you're supposed to know about it, but not know, like, too much about it. It was, like, really the study that they did was really very specific, and I
It's
think
yeah.
ultimately the the conclusion was it's really not practical for any sort of advertising purposes. It just
No.
doesn't work.
No, it's not worth the time and effort that it would take
Yeah.
to create a subliminal message to put in an ad to broadcast to millions of people and hope that they buy your product in the next 10 minutes. It's just not it's just
Yeah.
not.
So it was really surprising to me to find that out. I guess I mean, I don't, like, look up stuff about subliminal messaging that often. I thought it was just sort of like a known thing that actually,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what I thought. I don't know if I actually believe that subliminal messaging worked or not. I don't think it's even something that I really thought about. Did you have any like preconceived thoughts about subliminal messaging when we like before we started?
I thought that it was something that happened on the regular, and that
Really?
people just kind of thought like knew about it, um,
Huh.
like they knew that it was going on, and I honestly thought that it was just like maybe you're susceptible to it and maybe you're not, you know.
So you just thought it was like embedded in like modern advertising pretty
Yeah,
much like everywhere?
yeah, I did. I
Hmm.
really did. Because I mean, you think about it with advertising as a whole, and we're exposed to like, I think the statistics is like 4,000 ads a day or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and not only that, but in the TV shows and everything like that that we watch, there's like product placement and TV shows, sports, games, video
Mhm.
games, everything has product placement that is like designed to get you to go out and purchase it. So my thought process was, if it's in our face, there's definitely something going on under the surface that we don't know about, or that we know about, but we don't know the full details of whatever is going on. Um, so it was definitely surprising for me to realize, to see that this doesn't really work and no one really does it.
Yeah, well, what's interesting to me about what you said is that that almost leads us into, I guess, the second part of this, because when you talk about like the number of ads that you see every day
Mm-hmm.
and just like how much product placement there is and all these other things, even though we now know that there really isn't subliminal messaging in the sense that we were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, where there are like hidden messages essentially that you don't consciously see, but your subconscious somehow your subconscious was supposed to pick up on them. So even though those sorts of messages aren't embedded in what we see every day, there is this interesting topic called neuromarketing. Neuro
Yeah, I think it's
neuromarketing.
like Nero. Now,
So,
I do want to
like,
say,
short for neuroscience.
right.
Yeah.
Um, I do
Um,
I do want to say real quick, if you think that subliminal messaging is like a creepy thought, like a creepy thing to think about, that they're just like flashing, like brainwashing us kind of, with little tiny messages in our advertising, this takes the cake on what I think is creepy as far as advertising goes. Um,
oh, yeah, it is almost worse, but it isn't. I don't know. I guess I haven't seen, like, the backlash on it that happened from, like, subliminal messages, and I don't know. I guess we can kinda go into it a little bit in a second, but I it's almost like when subliminal messaging came out, it started happening, it was, like, almost seen as a brainwashing.
mhm.
So, like, something that is, um, going against the will of an individual or something,
Right.
whereas neuromarketing is learning how the brain works and reacts to stimuli
Mhm.
in order to get someone to lean one way or the other on, in this case, a purchase, buying a product. So it's like using our own brains against us instead of like trying to insert a foreign idea, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
It's
weird.
it's very weird, and when you read about it, like when you look into neuromarketing, it's like all the different, I guess, all the different processes they use to determine how, like you said, how the brain works in regards to advertising. It's very what's the best way to put it? It's very like it encompasses a wide section, but like all focused towards the same thing. So like they'll do like EEGs of your brain, or they'll use like eye tracking and stuff like that. And so it's like you said, it's all about how the brain works and what the brain is like drawn to, I guess is the best way to put it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the decision making process of a consumer on, like, the neuro level.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really very strange.
it's very strange. And when we decided on doing that after we realized that subliminal marketing and subliminal messaging wasn't like a real hot button issue as much as I thought it was going to be, I thought we would have loads to talk about. But then I started to dive into this neuromarketing, and it's like the new hot thing, the new hot thing for advertisers.
Yeah.
And that's kind of so it's kind of like paving the way, I guess, in regards to the future of advertising. Um, so I don't know, maybe this is like
Yeah.
our generation's subliminal messaging.
Maybe. I mean, I think that yeah. I mean, when you think about it, when you research it and figuring out what they're actually measuring and how they're, marketing to us based on that feedback,
Mhm.
I mean, I think that the biggest criticism is that, it's really an invasion of privacy almost. Like,
Yeah, I
uh,
think so. I would consider it an invasion of privacy. I
yeah.
mean, especially with the eye tracking, um, that is so you hear eye tracking, and like it's used in a lot of things. Like even like video games use it to a certain extent. Um, but in regards to like advertising and things, like if you're shown an ad, what they'll do is they'll track your eye movement across the ad, and they'll generate like a heat map of where, I mean, obviously it's not just one person that they're doing this for, but it's like a group. um and they'll generate a heat map based on where people's eyes fixate on most. And so
Yeah.
for any number of ads, um it really, it like Biscuit said, it's like creating, it's like invading our privacy of what we're enticed by, I guess, almost. um
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's I wanna go through some examples of neuromarketing. I have, like, a top 10
Okay,
list that we can look at.
let's do it.
But it's interesting to me because I'm in the marketing field, I guess.
So you're the bad
And
guy.
I am, and it's there are some things that I do on a daily basis where I'm just like, "How did we get this information? Like, how
Yeah,
are we using this? And, like, who are we sending this to?" And I mean, we're obviously not as I think that generally, like, it's a lot of big companies, like big brand name companies who have the money to pay for these sorts of studies
hmm,
and like leverage this information that, they're the ones who tend to use this the most. But it's just like I see things in my daily work life that, you know, are a little bit concerning.
that makes sense.
If we have some time at the end of the stream, I'd also like to talk about kind of the mindset of marketers today
Okay.
and how, obviously I think the general perception is that, you know, marketing today is like an invasion of privacy. It's too personal. Like there are all these big companies using algorithms and stuff to like know what you're searching and what you're looking for and all this stuff. But it's interesting to talk about the marketer's perspective on why all of that is a good idea. But we
Okay.
can go into that a little bit later.
Okay.
But I do want to go through this list. I'll put the list here in chat
Okay.
so you guys can maybe you
Yes.
can look at it
I'm
too.
gonna look at it too.
Um, but it's got a lot of so it's got the first one is eye tracking marketing, which you already talked about.
Right.
And yeah, I think the best example of this is like heat mapping. So
Mm,
some of you, maybe some of you, like there are tools online that can, give you heat mapping of like websites and stuff. So like in that example, it would be, where do people scroll? Like where do they click and, what do they interact with? Um, and so I think that's kind of like an alternate version of like eye tracking. Essentially, it's mouse tracking, right? But it's kind of the same concept. But when you know what people are looking at, you can like focus on those items, make them bigger, make them more prominent, like just very interesting stuff. Let's see what else. Packaging. What is this? Oh, this is like how people interact with packaging. So like what do people like? Do they like zip zip sealers? Do they like easy peel tabs? Like
right.
I don't know. All
Uh,
of that just seems like normal market research to me though.
yeah. I will say though that this number three anchoring tendencies, when they talk
Mhm.
about the Campbell soup display here, for anyone that's actually looking at it with us, um, it says they set up Campbell soup sale display offering 79 cents per can with a sign that said no limit, and another with the words limit of 12 per person. The study found that without a limit, shoppers purchased an average of 3.3 cans, but with a set limit, they purchased 7 cans. So that's really interesting to me that with a set limit, someone bought more soup.
So that's like the exclusivity like tendency, right? Like where if something's exclusive,
Mm-hmm.
like people are more willing to pay money for it, I guess. And you see that in, like, collectible markets and stuff like that. I mean, their entire, like, small economies built on, I don't know, like, the worth of a magic card or something, like,
Right,
where if it's an exclusive card, it's gonna be higher price or you're gonna be more willing to pay for it because, it's one of a few instead of one of many.
right. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Um, I think, so here's another one about game developers. Number nine, reward and punishment. Uh, really leverage the power of neuromarketing and create something that's going to compel gamers, creators, or even hiring psychologists to build in psychological principles into their games.
Hmm.
Which it makes sense because, like, I don't know if you've played Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, but that game is all about like someone who's like going like suffering from schizophrenia, and so they like built it into the game that your character is like going psychotic, um,
Yeah.
and so it it does make it more compelling, if you can kind of put yourself in the shoes, so to speak, um, and so that, at least in my opinion, that makes it more compelling. So like that would
Mhm.
really sell to me, but to other
Mhm.
people that might not sell to. I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah, and there's stuff like number 5, like limited time offer, one of a kind. I
Hmm.
think that kind of also ties back to the exclusivity, like, you don't wanna miss out on this offer, like, you wanna be one of the people who got this thing.
Yes.
And that's something that, like, we all see on a daily basis. Like, it's everywhere in advertising,
Hmm.
like limited time, one of a kind, and it's just like, for me, it's just something I don't even think about, that's so inundated in marketing today that you don't consciously think about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you don't really think about anything you okay, so you see an ad on TV. Let's say you see an ad on TV and you you're watching the ad or whatever the commercial and you don't really think about it. But like I said, there's like 4,000 ads a day going into your brain. And so like you don't really think about it until you start looking into the analytics of it. And I don't know. It could just be me being a skeptic person, more of a conspiracy nut, but like it almost feels like it can read my brain sometimes because I'm
Yeah.
not like some of the ads feel like they're like made for me, and
Mhm.
that is less neuromarketing, and it could just be like it's just advertising. Um, but
Well, I mean, yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I think that's like a branch of neuromarketing, right? Where all of this data is collected on you, and so where we're talking more about physical marketing, like ads we see, in stores or on the street in the mall, or packaging in the store, like what you're talking about is more of the whole, like, marketing algorithm thing,
Hmm.
but I think it most definitely relies on those same neuromarketing techniques and data,
Hmm.
but it also is looking at, like, you're giving your computer data, like, every time you type something in, right?
Right.
Every time you go to a site, every time you look at something. So, like, even though you may not be looking, typing, cool shoes into Google, like, depending on
What if I am
pictures
typing
you
that?
like on Instagram or, like, things like that, like, I don't know, those big sites and how they market to you are pretty savvy, with that kind of stuff. So it is like reading. It's not reading your mind, but it feels like it for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, it's like all creepy. It's all
Yeah.
creepy to me that they're just collecting all this data, and whether it's through eye tracking or your search results or just even just clicking on something on social media or whatever,
Mhm.
it's all being compiled into almost like a personal file. And you know, going back to the eye tracking and stuff, if you look at that, the number one, yeah, number one with the picture of the baby and stuff, it it's really telling when you look at this this heat map and how much more information is being absorbed because of the direction the baby is facing, you know? And so like they can take this and then put it into use into future ads that
Mhm.
could then, let's say I clicked on this ad on social media, so then now they're being, it all ties together like you said.
Mhm.
So I click on this ad on social media, I indulge in the information, the data gets collected, sent back to them, they give me another ad later on, roughly the same idea, and it all works together. It's all a cohesive unit rather than this is an ad for this, like this is just an ad and this is just an ad and they have nothing to do with each other. It's all getting
Mhm.
like combined. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And speaking of this baby face ad, since we were just talking about it,
Hmm.
what's interesting to me too is that I'm a graphic designer. That's what I do for a living. But what's interesting about this is like there are techniques and tools, like as a graphic designer, my goal um is to convey information essentially, right? Is to tell an effective message.
Right.
And so like when you look at these ads, like you always want the eye to like be able to follow things through the ad. So the one on the right, like with this data, yeah, it makes more sense. Like the baby is looking a certain way, which is going to make you look a certain way. And so it creates this like loop through the ad, right? Like
Hmm.
baby's face to text to diapers, like goes around. Whereas like, the first one, the baby's looking at you, right? So you're looking at the baby. And so it's just like, I guess, we're talking about marketing and these, neuromarketing and things that are happening today, but in reality, i- this type of information is known and applied to other things too.
Hmm.
So it's I don't know. That's just an interesting tidbit. Something I noticed.
Yeah, and what you were saying earlier in Discord, you mentioned it in Discord. You said um, putting higher priced items at like eye level, so that
Mhm.
you're more drawn to those items rather than the cheaper um, alternatives. Um,
Yeah.
and that goes back with the eye tracking. It makes sense that you would put your high ticket items at eye level so that you're more likely to see them. You don't want people searching all around for the big item. You want it bam right there in your face.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting technique. I never really thought about it, but it makes sense. Um I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's it's all like the whole the whole concept of just studying the human brain to sell stuff is like I don't know. I- You know,
Okay, so do you think that neuromarketing or subliminal messaging is more of an invasion of your privacy? If you had to pick
mm,
one, which one would you say is more invasive?
I mean it does feel like subliminal messaging is more invasive.
Because you're being forced rather
Yeah,
than it
you're
just happening naturally?
yeah.
Okay. So let me ask
So
you
like
this. Let me ask you this, all right?
okay.
Since this is supposed to be a conspiracy theory and we've just been talking about marketing for the past 45 minutes. So we both found the information that subliminal marketing doesn't work.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. No one does it. All right? What if they do it? What if it does work? And they're just telling us, "No, it doesn't work. No, we don't do it." So that they don't get caught doing it.
That's a good question.
I'm just
That is
curious. Like, that seems, like I said, that's just me being skeptical, probably.
Yeah.
But to me, that's what I would do if I were them. Like, no, we're just going to tell them, no, this doesn't work. We haven't done any studies because all the studies that we've done have come up inconclusive.
I
Sorry about you.
mean, in terms of advertising, I don't know. I mean, well, let me ask you a bigger question. Well, I don't know. Maybe I should answer your first question first. I don't know. What if they are doing it? I mean, I guess either way, where whether it's subliminal messaging or neuromarketing, I feel like there's always gonna be people trying to sell us
Oh yeah,
stuff.
for sure, for sure.
So, like, I don't know whether we know about subliminal messaging or not, whether it works, maybe it's happening, maybe it does work. I don't know.
I don't know.
Would we know? Would we know if we're influenced by? I guess we wouldn't. That's the whole point, right?
Well, here's the thing, all right? Here's the thing. Okay, so they put these subliminal messages in ads already, right? Usually, that's what they would do now, I'm assuming. I doubt that they would put it in like the movie theater like during a movie because that would probably cost a lot of money. Anyways, so let's just go with the theory that they're putting these subliminal messages within an ad for Pepsi. Okay?
Mhm.
If I'm thirsty, that Pepsi's gonna look freaking delicious. And I'm gonna want that Pepsi. But it has nothing to do with the subliminal message underneath that says, hey, go buy Pepsi. It has
Mhm.
everything to do with them making the Pepsi look as delicious as possible and me wanting to consume said Pepsi. Does that make sense? So I couldn't you couldn't really tell if it was the subliminal messaging working or if it was the ad itself working to get you to buy the product. Does that make sense?
Yes? I think so.
All right. What was the question you had for me?
Oh, my question was, let's expand the question. I
Okay.
mean, if we're assuming that, you know, I guess if we're asking the question, is it possible that subliminal messaging is still being used and actually does work?
Mhm.
What about things outside of advertising? Like, is it being used? I mean, offhand, I can really only think about like evil sort of uses for it. Like,
You
to
could
me,
use it in
it
politics. Really,
yeah, oh, politics, that's a good one. Yeah,
politics.
yeah.
Really anything. Honestly, you know, anywhere you're trying to be quote unquote sold something, um, it would be if it okay if we're going with the idea that subliminal messaging works and is being used anytime you're being sold something, it would be, I think, a possibility that it would be used. Politics, um, a job, like a new job that you're going to, because, well, think about it. Because when you go to a new job for a new job, they're like trying to sell you on the job. You know what I mean? Like, this is why you want to work for us. This is why our company is so great. Blah 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 blah. So
I don't know. I have a hard time believing, like, to me, subliminal messaging would be used on more of a grand scale. Like, you have to have, to me, like, a job interview seems kind of small. But like, yeah, marketing or politics or I don't know, government related stuff. Like, that's where, to me, where subliminal messaging kind of seems to fit in.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. It's it could be you could chalk up politics to just being a fantastic speaker, a very eloquent speaker, and that's what got someone to vote for someone. But I mean, that's not unheard of. Ted Bundy was like a very eloquent speaker, and he convinced a bunch of people that he was like innocent and he should be trusted. But like on a political level, I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that they
Well,
were
that's
doing.
yeah, well, that's diving into like a whole nother aspect of, again, maybe not exactly subliminal messaging, but going back to the neuromarketing, like, I think that's very similar. So, I don't know, I think we kinda have this divide of subliminal messaging versus neural related activities, but when you talk about, like, all of the most, like, notorious dictators or public figures, there definitely is a psychology to how they spoke or how they acted in front of large crowds and how they were able to sway people, right? So that's like body language and like vocal tone and stuff like that. But that's all neurological, right? That's all how our brain reacts to that stimuli.
Mhm.
So I think very much like it falls kind of in the same category. But I think that it is hard to I don't know, it's just hard for me to believe in subliminal messaging, even though we kind of like beg the question, like, what if? But because there's so much like hard evidence to support like neurological I don't want to say like manipulation, but it's kind of manipulation, right?
Yeah.
Like we know that works and we know that it happens and people do use it, right? It is used in marketing. It people have used it to sway crowds politically.
Mhm.
So, I mean, to me, that as fun as it is to like think about these hidden messages like infiltrating your brain and making you do stuff, like now that we've talked about it, it almost seems like more like it almost seems a little bit silly
Mhm.
compared to the actual like statistical evidence of these neurological studies.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I okay, so do you think that you could use, I mean, I'm sure you could, but can you think of a way that you could use neuromarketing on like a grand scale for like a political, like for politics?
Well, yeah, well, that would be like propaganda, right?
Yeah, I suppose so, but you could also put subliminal messages within the propaganda, and
Just double up.
it all comes full circle. Everything everything comes full circle. Um,
He's double up on that neuroscience and subliminal messages
yeah,
just in
they
case.
just really
It
nail
couldn't
home
hurt.
the point. Um,
Extra effective.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a very interesting, it's a very interesting thought that maybe our minds aren't exactly, like, our minds in regards to advertising isn't exactly our own. Um, I don't know. It's really weird. It's really weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. So you wanted to talk about marketing as a whole. Did you still want to do
Oh,
that?
yeah. I just wanted to touch on like the counter argument. Because, like I said, I think that like the general consensus is that marketing is kind of shady, can be kind of manipulative. And obviously, as we've talked about, it is, right? The goal is to sell a product, and companies will use data to make changes to get that to happen, to get you to buy their product, right?
Hmm.
What's interesting to me is that I've been to a couple of marketing conferences and it's the story is completely reversed. So in like from the marketing point of view, obviously yeah, you want to make money, right?
Hmm.
But their point of view is, hey, you're a company, you have this product, you have this great product, and you think people should know about it. If people buy your product, their life could be enhanced in whatever way, right? Like if they're a runner and you're selling shoes, their running performance could increase. Or, if you're selling a kitchen appliance, like think about how easy dinner would be if you could save 20 minutes, like
Right.
like that kind of stuff. So it's all about like you've got a product. How are people going to know about you, right? If maybe I'm looking for a kitchen appliance that will save me 20 minutes on dinner every night, but I might not know what to search for, or I might not even know it exists.
Hmm.
And so, from the marketing perspective, it's like, all right, how do we get our product out there? How do we get people to see it?
Hmm.
Because we want to help them.
Right.
We want to make their lives easier. So how do we let them know about this product instead of, you know, the reverse, which is, I was looking for some shoes and now all I see on Facebook are like 50 different shoe ads.
Right.
Right? Because there are definitely people who want to, I don't know, there are varying opinions on all of that, but to me it's just interesting to hear that marketing perspective because it's completely different than what the general opinion is on marketing, I
Right.
think.
But I will say that there is like a limitation to that because look, I I find it a little bit creepy when I search on Google, I don't know, something. And then, the next time I go on Facebook, it pops up like, "Oh, look, here's this thing that you were just searching for." You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
find it a little bit creepy, but it's helpful. Or Amazon, Amazon does it a lot
Yeah.
too.
I mean,
However,
yeah.
there was a story of this 16-year-old girl who searched like how to know if you're pregnant on Google, right?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
then like a week later, Target sent her like, "Hey, we heard you were expecting. Here's all this baby stuff."
Oh, no.
And they sent it to her house. Her dad found it and he called him up and he was like really pissed. Like, "Hey, my daughter is 16, she's still a virgin, blah blah blah. You don't need to send this stuff to us." He was mad, and then she told him, and she was like, "Hey, look, Dad, here's the 411." And but like that's kind of I feel like there's a fine line of like what you should take as far as information goes.
Yeah.
Um, that's just my personal opinion, though.
Well, there are rules and regulations, right? So, like, basically, you can't, like, for instance, Google won't reveal, like, Google will tell you how many people came to your website and where they came from and how many minutes they spent on a certain page or whatever.
Hmm.
But Google's not going to tell you like the IP addresses of all of those people, right?
Right.
So like basically the rule is any personal information that would identify you as an individual,
Hmm.
you are not allowed to have access to. Like, they won't give that to you. They could get in a lot of trouble. So, like, that's kind of interesting that Target, like, how did Target get that girl's address? It's
I
just a
don't
very
know.
strange
I don't
story.
know. It's a very weird. If I find, I'll try and find it after the show, and I'll send it to you because it's a very
Yeah,
like weird. It's very weird. Um, but like I
I would
get
be
it.
interested
I
in
get
hearing about
marketing
that.
analytics, for the
Yeah.
podcast. I'm constantly checking the analytics, seeing if we
Yeah.
have, new viewers. And like I've shown you before, like it even tells us like what country they're from or what state they
Mhm.
live in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And or it'll tell me like like what parts were they like most engaged with or
Mhm.
whatever. Um, so I get wanting to see and analyze the data and compile it into a big thing, but like I said, I think there's like a fine line, you know um like to me it's awesome to know that we have listeners in Japan, but
Yeah.
I don't want to like know exactly where they live in Japan and send them stuff.
Send them TinBiscuit swag.
Yeah, non-existent Tin Biscuit swag.
Right. I don't
But
know. It's, yeah, I think that marketers are more interested in the population as a whole and not really like individuals, right? Because
Right.
their goal is to sell to as many people as possible. So they're
Right.
not like, oh, Biscuit at this address is really interested in this item and like blah blah blah. Like that's just not how it works. They want, even though like things seem tailored to like your specific tastes, I mean, realistically, your tastes aren't going to be that much different than like millions of other people, right?
Right.
So, like, it's just that data is applied to you in an individual sort of way, or it makes it seem individual when it's really not. Like, you're just part of the mass that they're trying to sell
Right.
to. So,
Exactly. It's just our
yeah.
own uh, superiority complex, thinking that we're like the most important person, and
I
we're
mean, I
really
think it's definitely something to keep an eye on. It's just be safe, be informed,
get a
um,
VPN.
but yeah, but don't worry too much about it either. That's kind of my philosophy.
Yeah,
Be informed, don't worry too much.
I tend to agree with that. Like you said, it seems like it's tailored to you, but really you're not like you're not special. I'm sorry to, like that's like a really blunt way to say it, but like you're not special. That we're gonna run this ad for this one person at this exact time.
You
So
specifically
right.
get
So
this one ad.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So,
Other than that, I have nothing else.
kind of a bummer, but also probably overall good that subliminal messaging isn't actually a thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it did lead us into some interesting conversations about neuromarketing and
Advertising as a whole.
yeah, advertising. So I don't know. It was I think this was a good conversation.
I agree. I agree. I know we've been talking about advertising we've talked about it in a few episodes and saying
Mhm.
how we were going to talk about it, and I'm glad we finally got to. Um so yeah, other than that, I have nothing else.
Yeah, so I guess one more thing. Clock sent a graph.
Okay.
So remind me what this is again. This is, hold on, I'm scrolling back through the chat.
Okay.
Tell me what this is again, Clock. It's some sort of like decision making chart. Oh, something that Activision is trying to patent for marketing microtransactions.
Hmm.
So hold on, let's
Interesting.
see. Let's take a look at this.
Interesting. I will say, while we're waiting on Biscuit to figure out what exactly she's looking at, um,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. It's fine. It gives me a chance to talk about something. Uh, Guys, if you have any ideas for future shows that you want to see talked about, conspiracy theories that you want to hear talked about, um, make sure to hit us up. Discord, either my Discord, Biscuit's Discord, or the Trailblazers community Discord. We're both a part of that. Um, on Twitter at TinBiscuitR, email TinBiscuitReviews@gmail.com, or either of our Twitters, Instagrams. Uh, yeah, that's all I got. Did I miss anything?
No, no, that's
Listen.
it. So we're looking at this. So this is something that Activision wants to patent to try and promote microtransactions. So basically it's, hey, I have something shiny and you don't. Don't you want this thing? So when two people are in a game,
Mhm.
one person who doesn't have an item is matched up with another person who does have a special item. So they play a game together. So the first person can see how cool this item is, and then they wait to see if the first person who is matched who doesn't have the item actually ends up buying the item. If they do buy the item, they're placed in a game where they're more likely to win with that item, it looks like. And then if they don't purchase the item, it says their player profile is updated to indicate a non-purchase. So I don't know if that means like publicly, like, hey, you don't have this cool item yet, or if that's like a back end thing.
So let me shed some light, not necessarily on this, but Activision as a whole. So a while back, um, for Black Call of Duty Black Ops 4, right? They updated players in the lobbies to have a little symbol next to their name if they did not own the season pass. Okay,
Oh.
so they effectively shamed those people for not owning the season's pass. Um, so Activision is a really shit company. Sorry for the language, but it's a really crap company. And not only that, but like the whole thing about like they'll be more likely to be placed, or they're placed into a match where they're more likely to win with said item. That
Yeah.
has been happening in game multiplayer games like for the longest time. If you go into a multiplayer game, like let's say Overwatch for example, if you're a brand new purchaser of that game now, and you go into your first game and you get absolutely creamed, and then your second game you get absolutely creamed again, they are more likely to match you up with people that are closer to your skill level, more like recent purchasers of said game, so that you have a better chance of winning. Because if you don't win, you're less likely to play the game, and so it helps them
Mhm.
continue it, like gain a gain like a gamer base if you
Yeah.
win. It's really weird how it works, but yeah, that stuff's really kind of shady in my opinion, how games work.
Yeah, I mean that does dive into like that neuromarketing kind of
Mm-hmm.
territory, but it there seems to be a larger backlash in the gaming community, and I don't know if it's like because it's more overt, or if it's just like a different kind of platform and people are reacting differently to it. But it is kind of an interesting tangent.
Yeah, I mean, I think in regards to gaming, people are kind of upset because they've already purchased the game. Why do they need to pay more for something else, for extra content that doesn't do anything? And
Yeah.
so I think that's why there's a bigger backlash. Whereas if it's just an ad for diapers, you haven't bought the diapers yet, so why would you
Yeah,
be mad
that's
about it?
true. Yeah. So
I don't know.
it's you're in the different part purchasing cycle, I guess,
Right,
or post-purchase cycle. Yeah.
right.
Yep. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that clock.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not
Cool.
cool,
Well,
but it's interesting.
not it is interesting. Well, thank you guys so much. Like Tin Man mentioned, if you guys have ideas for future conspiracy theories and or I don't
Movie
know what
reviews
big ideas
or movies. We could go back to movies at some point. We need to do Godzilla.
we we could go back to movies. I don't know if I want to review.
You don't.
I did not like it,
I know that's why
so
we need to review it.
we could maybe.
Maybe.
I might be up for it.
Other than that, I have
All
nothing
right.
else.
Yep, that's it. Well, thank you so much, Tin Man, for
Thank you,
being an
Biscuit.
amazing co-host,
Thank you
and
as well.
have a good night.
You as well. Bye,
Yep.
guys.